Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought, of course, that I would review this little video and talk about this subject that I thought would be very particularly interesting. And this is going to be a video by that of Dante's Boxing Nation, where, of course, he's going to be talking about the aftermath of the Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia fight. And, of course, for those of you that did not end up seeing the fight, Ryan Garcia actually was able to win the fight, and of course, he was able to pull off quite the upset. I wouldn't say that once again that it's the biggest upset that I've seen, ever in terms of boxing. I would say overall that I've seen bigger ones, but at the end of the day, it's still, is an upset because I believe that Ryan Garcia, I believe that he was the underdog by 10-1. At least that's what I remember the odds being. And I think that had Ryan Garcia, had he overall probably been looked at as taking this fight as a little bit more seriously and a guy that would have been in a little bit more of the right state of mind, that it probably would have been more like 5-1 or somewhere around there, 4-1, 3-1. But I still think Devin Haney would have been the favorite. And I gotta state that these past couple of years, that there has been a few results overall that have surprised me, maybe even shocked me. The Naoya Inoue versus Steven Fulton fight. That one, was probably the least shocking because I knew that that fight could have went either way. So the fact that Inoue dominated him, I was a little bit surprised, but I wasn't necessarily shell shocked. The Crawford versus Spence fight, that did shock me a little bit. Not necessarily that Crawford won or that even that he won the majority of the rounds, but the fact that he just moved and ran through Errol Spence Jr. with his punches like he was a kindergartner and like he was a little boy. Yes, I was a little bit surprised by that. But I think that the most shocking fight that I've seen as of recent would have to be this Ryan Garcia versus Devin Haney fight. A guy in Ryan Garcia, to where, of course, he lost to Gervonta Tank Davis not too long ago. Devin Haney, who, of course, and Ryan Garcia, of course, lost to Gervonta Tank Davis by stoppage. Keep that in mind. He's always been a guy that has made a lot of amateurish mistakes within his professional career. He does not appear to be a guy that has A grade level boxing IQ and at times A grade level boxing ability. Now, what Ryan Garcia does have, of course, is A grade level athleticism. He has excellent speed and he has ferocious power. Ferocious power. And I believe that Gervonta Tank Davis felt that power as well. And I think that even that level of power that Ryan Garcia showed in that fight scared Gervonta Tank Davis a little bit because he was he was also complaining to the referee a little bit once Ryan Garcia was starting to get on the inside. But of course, Gervonta Tank Davis, he's a very composed fighter. He's a great all-around fighter in my view. And of course, eventually he was able to get Ryan Garcia out of there. But anyways, when it comes down to it, like I said, the circumstances, Devin Haney, as of recent, he made it damn near into my top 5 pound for pound and probably on some people's top 5 pound for pound list. Devin Haney, of course, was recently able to get the wins over Vasily Lomachenko, George Kambosos, and of course out of Mr. Regis Prograis. You could debate that all those wins were A grade level wins. Now, of course, the Vasily Lomachenko one, I would argue that that fight could have went either way. But at the end of the day, Haney ended up getting it. I do think that 8 rounds to 4 for a couple of those scorecards was a bit wide, but it is what it is. It happens. You can argue that Lomachenko should have threw more. But the fact that Devin Haney was able to do that, and then he moved up to 140, completely dominated that of Regis Prograis, and then gets in the ring with a Ryan Garcia that appears to be a little bit mentally off the wall at the current moment in time. Now, maybe some of you may think that as a disadvantage. Maybe some of you may think of that as an advantage for Ryan Garcia in this fight because maybe he felt like he had absolutely nothing to lose. Because I think that Ryan Garcia, that there was a tremendous amount of pressure on him within this fight, and I think that he was right to think that way because Ryan Garcia, that he lost this fight, his career was pretty much going to be over. He pretty much was going to be an afterthought. But after this, Ryan Garcia, he's going to be kind of looked at the rest of his career. Even if overall, he ends up losing potentially another fight later on down the line or in his next fight, he's going to be looked at as kind of a Victor Ortiz or an Adrian Broner, type of character. To where overall, you don't really know what's going to come from him. But anyways, Dante's Boxing Nation, he's going to kind of talk about this overall, about the Devin Haney situation. And the question that I have for this video is that Devin Haney, after this performance, losing to a person that, in my view, really makes a lot of amateur mistakes. And he also showed this in his fight, really did not use his lead hand all that much. Devin Haney did not show great defense in this fight. He's never had great defense. At best, he's always had, probably average or good defense. And then, of course, Devin Haney getting knocked down 3 separate times in this fight and losing to a guy that has never had a belt. The question now has to be about Mr. Devin Haney is that was he particularly overrated? Was he a guy that maybe was never that great in the first place? And I'm not going to state that Devin Haney was never a great fighter. I think that that is, a little bit premature to say. And I think that if you're beating fighters like Lomachenko, George Kambosos, and Regis Prograis, that obviously you're somewhat of a great fighter. But of course, the question now has to be once again is that was Devin Haney maybe a little bit overrated, especially in terms of his skill set? And I think that especially after this performance, you would have to say yes, no doubt about it, because Devin Haney, to be quite honest with you, and Ryan Garcia, he didn't overall, in my view, look quite 100% in this fight. He didn't really look like he had the best of conditioning. It looked like he was a little bit flabby, someone in the midsection. I'm not saying that he didn't train and that he didn't work someone on it, but you could tell that he was not quite as conditioned in this fight, nowhere near as what he was for the Gervonta Tank Davis fight. And he was still able to knock down Devin Haney 3 separate times. And I thought that there probably at least should have been a fourth knockdown. But it is what it is. But anyways, Dante's Boxing Nation is going to talk about it. And we're also going to see, overall some of the things that he says about Devin Haney. And of course, kind of how different the energy is. Because we all know what he'd be saying if this was Canelo Alvarez who ended up losing in this fashion. Or if it was Usyk. Or if it was Tyson Fury. Or if it was Inoue. We all know what he would be saying. All right, he would be saying that, see, basically these guys were not worthy of the hype. They keep overall hyping up these new media or these old media fighters. And, overall they do this overall, to the great white hypes and all these other guys. Well, Dante's Boxing Nation recently said that Devin Haney was one of the Michael Jordans of the sport. Well, I don't think that you can really call him that anymore. But anyways, let's see what Mr. Dante's Boxing Nation has to say.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So Ryan Garcia just pulled off one of the biggest upsets of recent years, maybe in history, because nobody, and I truly mean nobody, thought that Ryan Garcia was going to win this fight. I told you guys after...
Well, I'm not going to say nobody, but, and once again, I'm not a betting man. Once again, I was talking to one of my commentators that comments in my videos every once in a while, who appears to be a betting man. And like I always say, I don't bet on professional sports because you never know what can happen. And Devin Haney, I thought that he was going to clearly win this fight, or that he was at least going to win this fight the majority of the rounds. I would have not been surprised, maybe had it been 8 rounds to 4. But the fact that it ended up in this fashion, and even, with him being knocked down once, I'm not really super surprised by that, because Devin Haney has never been a superb defensive boxer. He just never has been. He's gotten hurt by a lot of his opponents. He's gotten hurt by Jojo Diaz. He's gotten hurt by Vasily Lomachenko. He's gotten hurt by a multitude of other guys. Devin Haney has never been a Floyd Mayweather Jr. defensive type of fighter. He appears like that because he fights a lot on the back foot and he is very slick. But, after that, he is not really on the Floyd Mayweather Jr. level, really nowhere near. And Devin's a great fighter. But once again, that goes to show you how great of a fighter Floyd actually was. But anyways, when it comes down to it, once again, the fact that Ryan was able to actually knock him down 3 separate times, and Ryan really was not using the lead hand quite a bit, I mean, you would think that Devin Haney, being the seasoned veteran and the seasoned boxer that he is, at least as of now, that he would have had some answers to that. But he almost had no answers for that left hook in the second half of the fight. But maybe he just didn't recover from those knockdowns, because one thing I'll say about Ryan Garcia is this: that dude has monstrous power. Monstrous power.
Weigh-in. Ryan Garcia, he did make weight, obviously. He was 3.2 pounds overweight, which means he doesn't win the belt, but he wins one of the biggest fights in history. But I told you guys after that weigh-in that there was another fighter that came in almost 3 pounds over the weight limit, and that was Jose Luis Castillo in his rematch against Diego Corrales. He would later admit he came in overweight deliberately for an advantage. He ended up knocking out Diego Corrales in the 4th round after their first fight that Corrales actually lost, and he got stopped. The point I was making was, this doesn't mean that Ryan Garcia didn't train. This means that Ryan Garcia goes into the fight with a massive advantage. I still didn't think
with a massive advantage, Dante. Now, once again, keep in mind that when it came to Canelo fighting Dimitri Bivol, who's probably about 2 weight classes bigger than Canelo, even though Canelo probably rehydrated a bit heavier, there was never any talks about Dimitri Bivol having an advantage. Canelo Alvarez lost the fight because he's a limited fighter and he's overrated, and oh, Canelo is no longer on our top 10 pound for pound list. Then when it came to Fury, of course, not looking super great in his last fight against Ngannou. Fury overall, he's not that skilled, and all this other stuff. Usyk should have been knocked out by Daniel Dubois, all this other stuff, but when it comes down to their fighters, you notice that they have a completely different energy. It just is what it is. All right. I mean, you can state that the weight was a little bit of an advantage for Ryan Garcia. But let's not sit here and act like Devin Haney don't rehydrate damn near to 170 pounds. Like, Devin Haney is a big dude even for the 140-pound weight class. Like, Devin Haney, to be quite honest with you, is really a welterweight fighter. Like, anyone who's rehydrating at the 160-pound weight limit and is about 5'8" with a 72-inch arm reach, you're a welterweight fighter. That's what you are. And Devin Haney lost to a dude overall that has never even had a belt. It is what it is. So I don't want to hear any shit about how Ryan Garcia came 3 pounds overweight and all this other stuff. You can claim that that's a little bit of an advantage in terms of the mental mind games and all that other stuff. But dude, you could clearly tell that Ryan Garcia, that he was not as toned nor as conditioned as what he was for other fights in this fight. It just is what it is. And even he admitted that himself overall in the aftermath of this fight. He admitted that himself.
Ryan Garcia would win the fight, even with that advantage. But with that out the way, let's talk about how the actual fight played out. Because of Ryan Garcia's speed and power, I expected the first couple of rounds to be very explosive. Ryan Garcia, he jumped on Gervonta Tank Davis in the earlier rounds. I expected him to do the same thing against Devin Haney. But what I did...
To be honest, I wasn't really quite sure what to expect from that of Ryan Garcia. I wasn't sure if he was going to pull an Oliver McCall, like in the Lennox Lewis rematch, where Oliver McCall had a mental breakdown, or he was acting like he was going to fight, but he really didn't want to fight, and he was doing all this bullshit, overall to kind of act like, he's not really trying or have a mental breakdown in the middle of the ring. I wasn't really sure what to expect from Ryan Garcia. I do think that he was very nervous throughout the fight, but of course he did enough to end up winning the fight. But he could have been even better in this fight. To be honest, I think that had he really learned certain boxing basics, like using his lead hand, trying to set it up a little bit more, use a little bit more head movement, and let me also give Ryan Garcia this. One of the improvements that I did see in this fight is that he was using his feet a little bit more, moving in and outside the range. Now, in my view, he needs to use it a little bit better, but I just don't know if Ryan Garcia is ever going to be like that. But we'll see about that. We'll see about that. But the fact that Ryan Garcia was able to beat that of Devin Haney and knock him down on 3 separate occasions. I mean, Devin Haney, once again, decently great fighter, but, I always knew that he wasn't necessarily a defensive master. But I didn't think overall, once again, that he would have this big of a problem with Ryan Garcia's offense. I mean, I'm not stating that Ryan Garcia landed every punch that he threw. But at the end of the day, it's like, dude, you know that Ryan Garcia is going to try to set up that left hook, man. It's like, come on.
Didn't expect is for Ryan Garcia to hurt Devin Haney in the very first round with the left hook. But what was really strange in this fight is every single time Ryan Garcia would hurt Devin Haney, he would start moving around the ring. He would be the one backing up, and he would be the one holding Devin Haney. So after Ryan hurt...
And I'm not really sure if that was his lack of conditioning for this fight, at least compared to other fights, or if that was because he feels a little bit more comfortable on the back foot. Ryan Garcia, what you notice in a lot of his fights, he doesn't always feel the most comfortable actually as a pressure fighter. Now, he'll do it at certain times, but that doesn't mean overall that he's always comfortable doing it. Ryan actually, a lot of the times, prefers to kind of box on that of the back foot.
Devin Haney in the first round, then Devin Haney, I think he won the next 2 or 3 rounds with once again Ryan Garcia moving back and not really doing too much. But when Ryan Garcia was moving away from Devin Haney, he was trying to set him up with the hook. That's how he knocked out Oscar Duarte. He knocked him out on the back foot. But credit to Ryan Garcia because his speed and power was too much. It's very difficult to go 12 rounds without getting caught with that left hook because he's very accurate with it, as he showed in this fight. Devin Haney had never been knocked.
Well, Gervonta Tank Davis didn't get knocked down by that of Ryan Garcia. Now to be fair, Ryan Garcia was probably bigger in this fight, but I would also argue that Ryan Garcia was more heavily conditioned overall within that of the Gervonta Tank Davis fight. I would say that he was more prepared. And I would say that debatably he was more confident because, of course, he was undefeated at that certain point in time. So, it is what it is. But Gervonta was able to get past it. To be honest, I don't really remember Gervonta Tank Davis getting hit with that left hook very often. And he found a very good counter for it.
down before, and I believe he gets knocked down in this fight 3 times. He was hurt several times in this fight.
So point is that Devin Haney, even though of course he's a very decent fighter, something does have to be stated overall about his poor defensive plan, in my view, within this fight. It just is what it is.
First time Devin Haney got knocked down, it took him, I think, a couple rounds to recover. But the second time Devin Haney got knocked down, I don't think he ever recovered 100%. But once again, it was very strange because Ryan Garcia, he would continue to hurt Devin Haney, and then he would continue to go on his back foot, move around.
And isn't it very interesting, once again, how these guys, whenever it comes to the Plant versus Benavidez fight, they talk about how the referee was letting Caleb Plant hold on for too long. And, I kind of agree to a slight degree. And then when it comes to other fights, Wilder was getting screwed by Tyson Fury, but there's there's never any conversation about how that referee overall was letting Devin Haney hold on for about 30 seconds at a time, during overall that 7th round when Ryan Garcia was able to knock him out, it is what, or knock him down, and don't get me wrong, I'm not stating that Harvey Dock didn't mainly do the best job that he could, but in my view, he could have got after Devin Haney a little bit more overall for the holding, because he got after Ryan Garcia for holding as well, as he should have, but you have to get after Devin Haney a little bit as well. And in my view, in round 7, there was one more knockdown in one of those rounds overall than what they stated, because at least in my view, when Devin Haney was holding on to Ryan Garcia and his legs could not sustain him when Ryan was backing up, I'm sorry, but in my view, that's counted as a knockdown.
On the ring and tie up Devin Haney until he would hurt Devin Haney again, ultimately. With that being said, though, once again, this is what makes the sport of boxing such a great sport, because you just never know when you're going to see something that is completely unexpected. Now, Ryan Garcia has completely shook up the boxing world. The question is, what does he do next?
I think about the only chance that Ryan Garcia had to really win this fight was to knock Devin Haney down 3 separate occasions. And that's and that's exactly what he did.
He couldn't make weight at 140. He was talking about after this fight moving up to a higher weight class before this fight, but then in a post-fight interview, he said he would be interested in giving Devin Haney a rematch. I highly doubt they're going to fight in a rematch. I mean, we might even see a Gervonta rematch before we see a Devin Haney rematch.
I wouldn't be shocked at all. If I'm Ryan Garcia's team, I'm not really rushing to fight that at Devin Haney in a rematch. Of course, Devin Haney is going to want the rematch, but, Oscar De La Hoya, now he has his next fighter. Now he kind of has overall a guy that he can kind of market a little bit. I think that he was maybe trying to get rid of him a little bit, but now, of course, change of plans. Now he can really market him. Why would you really want a rematch with that of Devin Haney? Unless overall you think Ryan Garcia can 100% win that fight. There is no guarantee for that. Right now, overall, maybe you give him a couple tune-up fights, or maybe you get him in the ring against Isaac Pitbull Cruz or Subriel Matias, someone like that. Probably an Isaac Pitbull Cruz. Or, lead him up overall, to some decent opponents. Maybe even an Arnold Barbosa Jr., who looked like shit, in his, I believe, fight tonight. A fight that he potentially could have lost, from what I hear, but I didn't watch the whole thing. But anyways, when it comes down to an overall, I don't see Ryan Garcia more than likely facing Devin Haney in a rematch, but we'll see.
Would not be surprised if Ryan Garcia moves up to 147 and he possibly fights Jaron Ennis, because now Jaron Ennis is a DAZN fighter, or he fights someone else at welterweight. But regardless where he fights, there's no...
I'd be a little bit surprised if Ryan Garcia fought at welterweight. I would be a little bit surprised if Ryan Garcia ended up fighting at welterweight. That would surprise me a little bit, especially if Oscar De La Hoya allowed that. Why, after this big win over Devin Haney, and you can now get possibly millions of dollars out of this kid right now, even if he possibly fights tune-up fights next, why the fuck would you want him to go up and fight that killer Duran Butenas? That just makes no sense whatsoever, especially when Ryan has never fought at that weight class before. Like, right now, Ryan is on top of the world. Why the hell would you want him to fight a Duran Butenas? I mean, Ryan Garcia, of course, talked about it a little bit, but, I mean, does anyone think that that's a good idea, especially if you're a promoter, to put Ryan Garcia in the ring against Duran Butenas? Unless you're trying to get Ryan Garcia absolutely killed by putting him in these repeated fights. I mean, I don't think so, but we'll see.
No doubt about it. Now Ryan Garcia has showed that he's one of the most...
But of course, I was also very surprised by the Devin Haney fight as well, but maybe Oscar De La Hoya has seen something that we all did not see. I doubt it. I think Oscar De La Hoya, I think that maybe he was trying to get rid of Ryan Garcia, but of course, it turned out even better for him, because now he can market this kid overall, and Ryan Garcia now, he has somewhat lived up to the hype, at least to a certain degree.
dangerous fighters in whatever division that he fights in, because once again, he has that tremendous accuracy with his left hook. His speed and his power is extremely dangerous.
Well, on top of that, it's not just that, but we have to talk about Devin Haney's lack of ability within this fight. He had a very difficult time getting in on Ryan Garcia, and Ryan was not Ryan is not a defensive nor offensive master. Like Devin Haney was having a very big problem overall really getting in there. You could tell that he was afraid of Ryan Garcia's power, and I think that that left hook in the first round always kind of made him a little bit tentative, because he could have really threw a whole lot more within this fight. And that's usually how Devin Haney beats opponents. If he can't completely outbox you, then he's going to outthrow you. But he didn't outthrow Ryan Garcia, at least in some of those rounds. And Ryan has more, like a decent amount more power than Devin Haney. Like Ryan is one of the most impactful punches in the whole sport. So it's like, in all of boxing. So it's like Devin Haney really had to throw more within this fight, and he didn't, which is very highly unfortunate, but it is what it is.
And I believe he's going to easily be able to carry his power to 147. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.
But once again, you notice overall that Dante's Boxing Nation that there's no talk about Devin Haney's lack of defensive ability within the second half of this fight. There's no way that you should have got knocked down by a fighter like Ryan Garcia when he was being as one-dimensional in certain areas as what he was throughout this fight. There's no way that you should have been knocked down 3 separate occasions by that of Ryan Garcia, pretty much by the same punch. No way in hell. But once again, Devin Haney, decently great fighter, and I find it very unfortunate because I like Devin Haney. I find him to be very motivational, and he seems to be a great guy. But at the end of the day, he did not do well enough within this fight. Very unfortunate for him. Hopefully he bounces back, but we'll see because I don't really know where Devin Haney's career goes from here. And he may never have the same level of confidence ever again. And Haney, once again, I don't find him to be a fighter that I find to be as skilled as some of the other pound-for-pound fighters out there. I don't find him to be as skilled as a Canelo Alvarez. I don't find him to be as skilled overall as a Shakur. I don't find him to be as skilled, overall as a Gervonta Tank Davis, who now might make my top 10 pound-for-pound after this. I don't find him to be as skilled, probably overall, as Naoya Inoue, debatably. I don't find him to be as skilled as Usyk or Tyson Fury. I don't find it, and of course, certainly Terrence Bud Crawford, who right now could be number 1 pound for pound, is my number 1 pound for pound, So I don't know. We'll see. Because Devin Haney, in my view, like I stated, he's never been a great defensive fighter. So did Devin Haney just fight the wrong strategy for this fight? Was he a little bit too nervous? And can he possibly bounce back and win in a rematch? Or is this possibly the end of Devin Haney? Or will we see him in potentially other fights? I don't know. We'll see what happens. But Devin Haney, he's very lucky that he was not knocked out within this fight. I give it to him. He has a lot of heart. He has a lot of spirit. He has a pretty decent chin. A lot of people will say that, oh, Devin Haney has no chin. I don't agree with that because I don't think I've ever seen Devin Haney knocked down before this. I've seen him get hurt. But to state overall that, overall that he has no chin, of course, a lot of people stated that because, overall he got punched by Linares at one time and he got hurt. But at the end of the day, Linares can really punch. Like Linares, if he punches you, he can really tee off on you. People forget that he also knocked Lomachenko on his ass. So, Jorge Linares is not a bad puncher, even when he was pretty much washed up at that point. But Devin Haney, in my view, it was just a little bit of a disappointment from him. I think that he could have fought a little bit better, but it is what it is. But once again, was I perhaps overestimating Devin Haney's abilities? Maybe a little bit. I think that some of the weaknesses that I always noticed about Devin Haney kind of showed, throughout this fight. But, I still thought that he could have been a little bit more offensive. I thought that he could have been better. But maybe Devin Haney, maybe that's pretty much all he's capable of. I don't know. But we'll see what happens. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I just thought that I would talk about that. But once again, notice how Dante's Boxing Nation, how he has a completely different type of energy. Overall, once again, with Devin Haney, there's no talks about him being overrated, overhyped, all this other stuff. There's no really talk about any of the bad things that he potentially did within this fight. But then when it comes to the fighters that he needs to tear down, all of a sudden it's completely different. So once again, Dante has an agenda just like the rest of these guys. Once again, he's up there with, excuse me, old media and any of these other LDBC new media channels also. In terms of racial agendas, it just is what it is. All right? It's whatever. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Very unfortunate for Devin Haney, but of course very fortunate for Ryan Garcia. And it may have even been more important for Ryan Garcia to win this fight just because of the amount of pressure that was going to be on him. The amount of popularity, because I think Ryan Garcia was going through a rough mental time no matter what he states. but it is what it is. Anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. But very excited to see what happens with these two gentlemen next. What are the fights that I would like to see next? I would like to see Ryan Garcia, maybe overall against that of a Subriel Matias, or maybe against that of a Isaac Pitbull Cruz. To be honest, I think any fight, even if Ryan Garcia gets in a little tune-up fight, I think that is probably going to be very interesting. But maybe the fight that I would like to see him in next is Arnold Barboza Jr. Because I still think that he has to tune up on certain things, and I think that Arnold Barboza Jr. would be a perfect fight to try to fight. But we'll see. We'll see. As for Devin Haney, I don't really know where he goes from here. Of course, if he doesn't get a rematch with Ryan Garcia, I don't know. Maybe he can fight someone else like a Isaac Pitbull Cruz or a Subriel Matias, and we'll see if he's the same fighter in that fight or not. We'll have to see. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. And once again, I don't know if I would recommend Devin Haney once again taking overall, an immediate title fight because he got badly damaged within this fight. He was lucky that he did not get knocked out within this fight. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.